Do you think you are being watched, judged, or talked about negatively? Do you have evidence of this? Or have you tried to look at it from another perspective? Sometimes we believe that someone is thinking negatively about us, or even judging us, and sometimes we feel that someone is watching us. But most of the time we have no evidence of this. Antonella Trotta, a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst, offers advice on recognizing, coping with, and preventing paranoid thoughts from recurring on the Psyche website. We quote some parts of the article. In my work as a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst, I have listened to many people's suspicious thoughts and feelings about strangers, co-workers, friends, or family members. Of course, a person may have legitimate reasons for feeling suspicious or threatened. For example, experiencing discrimination or witnessing violence can determine a person's beliefs about other people and whether they feel safe in the world. But suspecting a threat based on little or no evidence, when it becomes persistent and disturbing, or when it affects one's daily life, indicates a problem with paranoid thinking. Paranoia is defined by psychologist Daniel Freeman and his colleagues as follows: it is a person's unfounded fear that people intend to harm them. A person can distinguish between the feeling of threat from actual danger and the feeling of potential danger. In the case of paranoia, however, this distinction is blurred and the person experiences a recurring state of alertness. There is a spectrum of such thoughts. At the extreme, there can be persecutory delusions, such as thinking that others are controlling your thoughts or that you are being routinely spied on. These extremely disturbing forms of paranoia affect a relatively small proportion of people, including those who experience psychosis in mental health conditions such as schizophrenia. In its less severe forms, paranoid thinking occurs in a much larger proportion of the general population, including those not suffering from a particular mental health condition. Indeed, it is estimated that at least 10% of people regularly have some form of paranoid ideation. Causes and risk factors for paranoia. The author says that negative life experiences such as bullying, trauma, neglect, and abuse are all factors associated with paranoia. According to the stress vulnerability model, life events such as violence or bullying can trigger beliefs of danger and threat that underlie paranoia for some. This can lead to the development of an internal schema about the self, such as, "I am fragile, others are dangerous," and can lead to the recurrent states of high arousal and search for hidden meaning that characterize paranoid thoughts. Social isolation and sleep deprivation can also increase the likelihood of paranoid thoughts. Researchers suggest that paranoia reflects a person's emotional anxieties, especially concerns about relationships. Social anxiety is significantly associated with paranoid thoughts. The stronger the anxiety a person experiences around others, the more they avoid confronting situations that feel threatening. For example, the fear of being rejected or feeling vulnerable can make some people think that others speak negatively about them. The more they avoid social situations, the more this threatening belief can become entrenched. In addition to anxiety and depression, certain ways of thinking or cognitive mechanisms are also associated with paranoia. Research shows that people who are more vulnerable to paranoia interpret ambiguous information more negatively than those who are less vulnerable, which is called interpretation bias. This leads to greater levels of distress. For example, interpreting an ambiguous look from a stranger as malicious is likely to support paranoid beliefs. Many people with paranoid thinking patterns tend to jump to conclusions based on limited information. These judgment biases, together with a tendency to blame other people for negative events and an inability to think flexibly, can prevent a person from generating or reflecting on alternative explanations for seemingly threatening experiences. In this article, I will suggest steps to help you recognize paranoid thoughts when they arise, deal with them in a way that alleviates mental suffering, and reduce the likelihood of their reoccurrence. Identifying paranoid thoughts may seem like a difficult task to begin, especially if you think there is good reason to be suspicious and feel threatened. However, there are some clues to help you recognize when you start to think this way. These may include one or more of the following. You have recurring suspicions about others without any concrete evidence. You are often insecure and angry, and you often feel overstimulated. Overreacting to sounds or people around you and having a recurring feeling of being overwhelmed or worried that something negative will happen to you are signs of being overstimulated. Developing more awareness of your thinking can help you identify a paranoid thought when it arises and give you some distance from it. Another useful step in developing more self-awareness is to listen to the sensations coming from your body. How does your body react in the here and now when you have one of these disturbing thoughts? Are there signals that you start to notice? The fight or flight response can happen automatically when you encounter any stressful or frightening experience. It can also be triggered by paranoid thoughts. Signs of the fight or flight response can help to warn you that you are having paranoid thoughts. Start keeping a diary in which you describe possible paranoid thoughts and related feelings. Focus on the thoughts that cause you distress and involve a sense of threat or harm from others. You can also write down your answers to the following questions to explain each of your thoughts. When did the thought occur? How much did you believe this thought? How worrying did you find it? What are the possible causes or triggers of the thought? Are there other explanations or possible outcomes? Possible triggers could also be factors that affect your health or mood, such as not getting enough sleep or stressful events during the day. For example, you may suspect that a stranger's look during a meeting implies that people there are judging you negatively and talking about you, but upon reflection you realize that there is no clear evidence of any negative attitude in this ambiguous behavior. The fact that most people at the event politely interacted with you may be evidence against the idea that you are being judged. Perhaps your best friend said that he or she saw no signs that anyone was judging or criticizing you. If your friend had been in a similar situation, if he or she had had a similar thought, you might have interpreted the situation in a more positive way than you did. You can therefore reframe this thought so that the situation is not as threatening as you initially thought. Slow down your thinking. I have described some of the thought processes associated with paranoia, including jumping to conclusions and interpreting ambiguous information in an overly negative way. What these processes have in common is rapid thinking, a rapid series of thoughts that can be difficult to hold in your mind and examine carefully. Racing thoughts that seem out of your control can be disturbing, especially if they involve concerns about your physical or psychological safety. When you notice that your thoughts are racing faster and faster, like cars racing down the highway, you can try the following breathing exercise to slow them down. Sit or lie down comfortably and relax your head and neck. Place one hand on your upper chest and the other on your abdomen, just below the rib cage. Breathe in slowly through your nose, count for 4 seconds, and let the air in. Exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds. Repeat the breathing steps for a few minutes or until you feel calm. Once you have established your awareness with your breath, take a moment to concentrate on the present moment, where you are and now. Focus your attention on the chair you are sitting in, the room you are in, the time of day. If you notice your attention drifting away from the moment, do the breathing exercise again. Mindful breathing reduces the body's stress response and promotes calmness, helping to soothe or stop racing thoughts. These exercises can also be part of a daily self-care routine. For example, you can practice them for 10 minutes at the beginning and end of the day, or several times a day. Most people are preoccupied with racing thoughts when they wake up or are about to go to sleep. Starting the day anchored in the present can help you feel more grounded as the day progresses. Since factors such as lack of sleep can intensify paranoia, consider whether these factors play a role in your thinking. For example, after observing and taking note of recent occasions when you have had paranoid thoughts, perhaps you will notice a trend. If this is the case, you can focus on managing the potential trigger by stopping them. For example, you can establish a consistent sleep routine where you aim to go to sleep and wake up at the same time every day. You can also avoid using screens before bed or relax by taking a bath or reading a book. A sense of trust and safety with others is a key factor in overcoming paranoid thoughts. You may feel vulnerable or embarrassed about your thoughts, afraid of how someone will react if they find out about them. But you can share your thoughts with someone you can trust. This will make you feel listened to and understood. If you decide to share with someone you trust, try to be as honest and open as possible about your feelings and thoughts, as well as your difficulties and needs. You can also share practical things they can do to help you, such as going for a walk together, accompanying you to social events that you find difficult to go to on your own, or regularly asking how you are doing.